Good evening. And if you're here for the first time, you're looking at my 15 minutes. My name is John, and the channel is Old Folks Boogie too. And I'm old, and I boogie. It's an old joke. It started just before I put this thing on the air, this crazy 15 minutes that I'm doing every day. Oh, look, the clock is binging. It's the start of my 15 minutes. Now, at the beginning, and for those who haven't ever followed me before, and that's everybody under the sun. But if you're running across this for the first time, I started to do this on January 1st. I intend to do another 15 minutes every day until the end of the year. So I'm trying to follow up on that now. This is episode 51, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, 51. Actually, episode 51. Wow. We passed a milestone last night. Done this 50 times so far. Last night we were discussing thrift stores and the crazy things you can find there. different things. But if we had been discussing I had been discussing. There's no discussion. I just talk. In case you haven't figured that out yet. There's no discussion about anything. I just run my mouth. So it's okay. Anyway, I had been talking about a music festival that I had gone to back in 1971, the Celebration of Life Music Festival. But my brother David reminded me that there had been another music festival in 1972 that we had gone to up at the Pocono Raceway, up at Pocono Downs, up in the Poconos, in Pennsylvania here. And he reminded me of an incident that happened, and I can't remember whether it was going to the thing or going away from the event at all. But either, well, in fact, other than David, I don't even remember who went with us. It wasn't, I can't, well, I'll tell you this story. So somehow or another, this was 1972, I don't know when it was, maybe David and Marta, because he hadn't gotten married yet maybe at that time, maybe she went. I don't remember who went besides me and David. And the only reason I remember, and I don't even remember him. That's just the whole point here. I do remember that we borrowed my father's car. He just gotten it was a Chrysler New Yorker. Very pretty. First really loaded up car he ever owned. It was I don't remember what year it was. I don't think it was brand new, but it was pretty close. Really pretty car. So we borrowed that and we went on this drive. In my memory, there's nothing there at all. God, it's so bizarre. What I do remember is either on the way up there or on the way back from there. And I think it must have been on the way up there. David thinks it was a rock, but I think it was a baseball. It came up over the top of a rise where the road level was lower and there was a bank. And you couldn't see up over the bank. It was taller than the car you were sitting in, unless you were in a semi or something. But anyway, something came up over the bank and popped the windshield of the Chrysler and put a big old star into it. Luckily for us, it didn't crash in and cause a major thing, but it certainly disrupted things for a few seconds there. Didn't crash. We stayed. I was driving. As I told my brother the other day, I said that it was a good thing there were witnesses, that it wasn't my fault. But anyway, we all had our share of automobile mishaps when we were younger, growing up. I I wrecked a few. I wrecked a few before I got on a winning streak for a long time, and now I wrecked that this year or this last year. I wrecked my winning streak. I reckon the Lincoln. There's a story back in. I told that story back earlier. If you haven't seen it, maybe you can find it in the not archives, but in the list of stuff, videos. I don't remember what episode it was. I have no idea. I don't even remember what I talk about mostly from. I can usually remember the night before, but remembering anything much further back than that, in other than in generalities, not so much. But anyway, so we had gone to this rock festival, gotten the windshield smashed in the car, and from that point on, I don't remember anything. I don't remember arriving at the rock festival. I don't remember being there. I don't remember the acts that were there. I don't remember doing any drugs that would account for this particular lapse of memory. I don't remember anything at all like that. I had stopped doing acid long before that. The only thing I did do, even in those days, was maybe drink a little. There were sometimes I drank a lot, but I don't think this was one of them. And but it's just a blank spot in my memory. I remember the windshield. Boy, that's etched into me forever. Like I said, I think it's a baseball that came over the bank and crashed the windshield. David said a rock, stone, some sort. We never did figure it out. We never did find out who threw it or where it came from. We didn't stop. There was no way to, where we were, there was, But anyway, I don't even remember getting the drive home. I don't even remember, I barely remember anything about that weekend. Now, here's another interesting thing. I told before when we were talking about the celebration of life, there is an archive and there is a documentary that was produced and is available on YouTube. I put a link in there on one of those other episodes. I hope it works. That was an interesting, that was an interesting 30 minutes that I spent watching that and having some memories, jogged and some of my memories refreshed, really, because, well, anyway, I've already been through all that. This, on the other hand, I did. I went and looked it up, and there was a festival in 1972 held at the Pocono, and we must have gone. My brother says we went, but I read about it, and it turns out it was supposed to be a 2-day thing, but it turned into just an overnight thing, and they wouldn't let anybody leave till the next morning or something. And there's no documentary done. There's nothing to tell about what, I mean, nobody's talking about what there's some people writing about it, but it's just nothing that I read could jog the memory and make me realize what I had attended. It was. Now, there are other concerts that I went to that were not rock festivals that I did get a pretty good buzz on from one thing or another. One of my great ones was the Grateful Dead. Oh, I saw the Dead twice. It was great both times. This was back in the early 70s. I fell in love with the Dead about right after, about 71, I guess, the first time I started hearing some Dead. And then Europe 72 came out a couple of years later. But, it was probably 73 or 4 and 5, somewhere around in there. I saw the Dead and Bruce Springsteen for the first time, actually. But that was a sober concert. That was one of the greatest experiences of my life. That was, maybe I should tell that story sometime. 'Cause that's an interesting story. I have mentioned before that where I am right now is only a hop, skip, and a moment from where I was in 1973, 74, 75. Those years, 2, 3, yeah, I mean, 73 and 4. Anyway, those middle years of the 70s, we had a farm around the corner here that we rented. And I said before that my friend Howard, who I met actually at the Hilltown Inn at the time, now it's a Crossroads Tavern. Um, anyway, we we met there, and that's how I ended up becoming friends. Didn't even know, we just met playing pool. I didn't know he was a really, I mean, he was a songwriter, a singer, a musician. He was multi-talented. And it's a shame because it's just a shame. He never, it never amounted to anything, just to the people that loved him and knew him. And I loved him and knew him, but I ended up not being a very good friend, especially at the end. But anyway, let's get past that. Anyway, I don't want to go off on a maudlin story here. We were living at this farm. Howard had a band. It was called Bearcat Jones. And the keyboard player in that band at that time was a gentleman from New Jersey by the name of Danny Nobilinsky. Great rock and roll keyboard player. I mean, raucous as they get. Just could really bang the keys. Or he could do organ. He really had talent. He was really rocking. And, this had been going on for a little bit. The band had some gigs. And one day, I guess it was either late summer or early fall, there was this, I guess, we could hear a racket. Our driveway was pretty long. It's still really long. The house is still there that we had. It's all done up, and, somebody has spent a lot of money to make the place really nice again. When we lived there, it wasn't a dump because we lived there. But anyway, neither here nor there. The driveway was gravel. It had at a very low point across the creek, and there was no bridge. And if you were going a little fast, boom. But it wasn't me, but we hear this car coming down the driveway and a couple of horn beeps. And then we hear the whoomp when he hits or when the car hits because you could hear everything coming up that valley to the house in the morning, especially. It's very quiet. Back in 1972 and 3 and 4 up in Hilltown, it was a very, very quiet area. Anyway, Danny Nobilinsky is the one. He's driving in his old beater, and he's coming all the way from New Jersey. And I thought it was for rehearsal, but he comes bouncing out of the car. And he's got a couple of albums in his hand, and he's screaming and hollering, "You got to hear this, you got to hear this, you got to hear this." And so we're like, "Oh, okay." We're already up anyway. It's not early morning, believe me. It's probably, closer to noon than it is closer to 6. If you get my drift, we weren't early morning risers at that time. But so we were awake and probably smoking joints. And anyway, he comes storming in, and I go knock on Howard's door and get him and say, "Come on, Nobilinsky wants us to hear something." And so I go in, and I think it's me and Nobilinsky. And then I think only that was Howard and Becky were the only other two people that came in at that time. And he sat us down, and we had a sofa. Oh my God, we're almost out of time. Anyway, I'm going to finish this tomorrow because this is a great story. I'm going to continue it. It's our first, well, you'll know tomorrow. I'm not going to say anything more. I mean, you probably already do know if you've been listening at all. But I'm going to really finish it tomorrow. Okay. Anyway, everybody take care of themselves. Take care of their loved ones. Be kind to others. Good night.